Hey guys, it's Jan, Not a Real Farm. So it is 5 a.m. and I'm making coffee. I realized that today is yogurt day. So basically what I thought I'd do is I'd just take you along on my crazy adventure of making yogurt. This is a yogurt that basically just sits on your counter. It doesn't need any heat. It just cultures on its own, which makes it really sort of low maintenance to look after. Initially, you'll have to find a culture to actually make the yogurt yourself. But this video is more about preserving the culture so you'll never have to buy another, find another starter culture again, because that's part of the expense normally is, finding that culture. Normally finding a culture is about $20, $25. I've seen them go right up to about 40 depending who you're buying them from. So it's 5 a.m. and I've got to make about 2 liters of yogurt and get that done. I think the other cost really for yogurt is the milk. That would be probably the only cost that is associated with, going forward making this yogurt. But here's to making dirt cheap yogurt, learning how to preserve your culture and never having to buy a culture again, and showing you how to take a break. If you just want to take a break from making yogurt, a lot of us do, because every 48 hours, who really eats all that yogurt anyway, right? So this is to show you basically how to make it, preserve it, and put it away so that if you have a fail, which does happen, you're able to actually hit some of your backups that you've put away or preserved, so that you'll always have a way to make your starter and get going on your yogurt. Sorry for the stuttering. It's really early. Let's get to it. Hey guys, so we're just hopping right into it. So here, as you can see, I'm creating a Mexican sour cream. Now, this was a starter culture that I had to specifically get from one of the sellers, and I think I got mine on Etsy. They do that. They have so many sellers on Etsy right now. You can get so many cool things. But what I've been doing is, this was over a year ago, and I've been working off of the same starter culture actually for quite a long time. So one of the tips that I wanted to offer to you basically for making your own sort of dirt cheap yogurt or sour cream or however you want to do it is, most of the time what you want to do is you want to look for milk. I use a whole milk. I don't use skim or anything like that, or 2%, but it's up to you. But the whole milk actually cultures a little bit better and a little bit thicker. I like the thicker sort of sour cream or yogurt. But I think one of the things that makes it worthwhile too is, if you're in the grocery store, is to look for marked down milk. You don't need perfect, milk to make your yogurt. In order to make it cost effective for you, you want to actually look for something that has a markdown where you can grab it really quick and go home and make your yogurt. So that's kind of what I've been doing, is sort of basically going in and looking for milk that's near the sell-by date, so that I can actually just make the yogurt really cheap. So if you find it on discount, go ahead and grab it, because it's so worth it just to try and make your own yogurt. So basically all I do when I'm doing this is, if I'm looking to preserve my culture for sour cream or for whatever yogurt I'm doing, the first thing I'm going to do is basically take the culture, a couple of tablespoons of culture, out of the jar, and you have 2 options. The first simple and easy peasy option, obviously, is freezing. You can make several, and these actually, I don't even know where I got these little containers from. I think my husband was doing some takeout, so I usually keep all of our containers. But if you actually take your culture, out of the jar and put it in a container with a lid, or however you want to freeze it, you can make successful batches of yogurt. The freezing does not hurt the culture. As a matter of fact, sometimes they recommend that you freeze a backup batch of culture, so that you can actually make sure that if there's any failures for your yogurt or your sour cream, you always have something to go to. So the first easy peasy thing is obviously to fill a container and to freeze it. And you can put as many, I usually do about 2 tablespoons, in a little container, chuck it in the freezer. Then that way, if I do something crazy where I forget to feed the culture, or I just, forget about it totally, or just want to take a break, I've got other culture now in the freezer ready to go. The other way that you can do it, I'm just going to move my spoon out of the way, is you can dehydrate it. So basically what you do is, You just take your culture out of the, I use a spare canning jar. I don't really, is that even something that can happen today? Can we use spare canning jars? I mean, there's so little of them now. But I take about 2 tablespoons and flatten it up on my parchment paper. And this is a dehydrator tray. And take a nice big scoop here. And I'll make several blobs. And I'm just flattening them into little patties pretty much, because at the end of it, once they're dehydrated, you're gonna break them up anyway. So just for demonstration purposes, here is a look at my 4, should we call them pancakes, of yogurt or sour cream starter. So what we're gonna do with this is you're gonna take this tray, if you have a dehydrator, and you're actually gonna put it in your dehydrator, okay, at 80 degrees Fahrenheit for a few hours until you notice, obviously, that it's really dry and you're able to break it up and crush it almost into crumbs. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put it in the dehydrator, let it dehydrate for a few hours, and then we're gonna take it out and we're gonna break it up and we're going to basically put it away like that, because you can actually store it. Normally I'll store the little broken pieces in a canning jar with the lid over it and basically put it away in the dark. So I'm gonna put this in the dehydrator right now, and then I'm gonna leave it in there for a few hours and follow up with it. And then I'm gonna show you basically what we can do with it. Now, this might take a few hours to do, so maybe what I'll do is I'll do a part 2 of the video, basically when they're all done. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to the dehydrator now and we're gonna put it in. So here's my dehydrator. It's a digital dehydrator. I've only got it set to 5 hours. I might change that depending on how the culture comes out. But what it will do is it tells me I've already got it set, it's ready to go, it's at 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So we'll just get back out here. And we are gonna take this and put it in. Okay, so every now and again what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just come in and check and see how dry the culture is. I'm gonna say it's probably gonna take maybe 5 hours, maybe a little bit more to get it done. Hopefully in my future videos I'll show you how I can freeze dry some of this stuff. But for now, we're gonna dehydrate it and break it up. And that's about it. So we're gonna close it up and leave it for the 5 hours and see where we are. So our other 4 blobs there are in the dehydrator, they're doing their thing. So if you just don't have a dehydrator, that's fine. What you can do is you can just take your culture. I lost my spoon, that's not a good thing. You can just take your culture and you put it in your whatever container that suits you for your freezer. I usually take about 2 blobs of this. You want to close it up, obviously. And then that's it. And then all you're gonna do is just put this in the freezer. So, hey, if you wanna go on vacation, is there such a thing? Or you just wanna take a break from actually making yogurt overall, obviously after you eat your other batch, this is now going to be the starter culture that you would start your next batch with. You probably would have to give it about 24 to 48 hours to sort of kick back into full mode where it starts to sort of wake up and make your batches properly again. But as long as you have a backup, you're always gonna have free yogurt and free starter. And that is how you extend your yogurt, I'm gonna say yogurt harvest, because that's really what it is. You'll never have to go to the store again and buy commercialized yogurt. Of course, you can always, add your fruit, do whatever you want to it. It's awesome. Mexican sour cream, I actually eat too as a yogurt because I love the sourness in it. Some people like a sweeter yogurt, it's up to you, but take this, throw it in the freezer, let it freeze, now you've got a backup. Or if you have a dehydrator, throw some of that into the dehydrator, and now you don't even have to rely on refrigeration just in case something happens. So those are some easy peasy tips for you to extend you know, keeping your yogurt, even just creating a backup for yourself. And now I'm just gonna make my yogurt. Just gonna pour the yogurt in, yeah, milk in. Get it together, Jan, I know it's 5 a.m. Now, as you can see, we haven't eaten the sour cream in a couple of days, so you can see how much sour cream I'm going to have, right? I gotta make a big batch of nachos or something. So we're gonna mix this together. And of course, what you're gonna do is, if you have a cloth or you have some sort of something to put over the top of this, so obviously no flies or anything get into it while it's, doing its thing, then that's great. Some people don't necessarily have, a warm enough kitchen. So one of the things that you actually might want to invest in if you don't have one is a heating mat. Normally with these particular types of cultures that sit on the counter, they normally just do their own thing once the culture gets going and you don't need a heat mat. Sometimes I like to use it. Next week I might use it just because the kitchen might be a little bit colder. It's going down to the low 30s next week, which means my kitchen is going to be a little bit cooler than normal. But most of the time with these particular yogurts, you just sit them on the counter and they do their own thing. So that is where I'm at with this, guys. And what I'll do later on is I'll post a part 2 and show you exactly what to do with the culture once it comes out of the dehydrator. But for right now, we're making Mexican sour cream. So just some really easy, quick tips on what to do, how to extend the yogurt, how to make backups, and really how to purchase cheap milk. If you purchase your cheap milk, get it on a markdown. I normally grab as many as I can, throw it in the fridge, and then you have your, sort of your endless supply for at least the next few weeks for your yogurt. This guy here is a buttermilk culture that I've started. Once again, he just sits on the counter and does his own thing. I put about a cup of milk in here. Same thing, you're gonna just stir it around and sit them on the counter. They do their own thing. Ooh, this buttermilk is nice and thick, as you can tell. There's nice lumps in here. So we just added about a cup of milk in here and we're just gonna let it ferment on its own. I normally basically use buttermilk if I'm baking. I find that the buttermilk creates sort of a really nice warm, sort of moist cake or cinnamon buns or, yep. There's no dieting in this house. And once again, I'm just gonna cover that up. I usually use, I'll usually set aside a couple of old dishcloths or something and cover it up just to make sure nothing gets in it. And I just use a canning lid. And basically leave it like that, set it on the counter, just set it aside. I don't do anything special with it. I literally set it aside. And there you have it. And it sits there basically for the entire day overnight until it's ready to be looked at again and sort of reconstitute and switch out the culture or do whatever you want to do with it. And that's pretty much it, guys. A lot of people do what's called chain yogurting, which is taking a small batch from one starter to make your new batch. And normally that's what you would do. If you're ready to make a new batch of yogurt, you just take 2 tablespoons of the previous batch, put it in a new jar, pour your milk in, and we start all over again. Sometimes what I do is I just basically just keep filling up the jar and we keep using it, and it allows me to just keep using the same jar, because eventually what happens is you wind up with all these jars sitting around on your counter and it's just too much. So that is basically it. It's really easy to continue to make your own yogurt starter. I don't ever plan on buying yogurt starter again, because now that I've learned how to freeze it and dehydrate it to make it viable enough that I can just keep creating batches, that's sort of the advantage to it all. And the other thing that I like about it is it doesn't require heat, this particular yogurt. So it can just sit on the counter. If the power goes out, big deal. If it goes out for a couple of days, big deal. I don't need any heat. It does its own thing. So this video is more about making your own viable starter and keeping your batches going, or even creating a backup for yourself, really, than it was about making the yogurt itself. Because we know how to make the yogurt, but what happens if I want to break, or what happens if the power goes out, or I fail? I can't tell you how many times that I was learning how to make yogurt and I killed the culture. it happens. It happens to me. Anyway, so really quick video this morning. Thanks very much for joining for coffee. Subscribe, thumbs up. You know the deal. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Thanks very much for joining me this morning. See you soon.